Tell me, do you call the vintage car a bug or a beetle? Hey Kimberbell friends, Cristin here, and we are going to work on block 20 today. Can you believe how far along we're getting? So this is actually the last of our vinyl blocks. How cool is that? So we are just humming along, and today we are going to make the vintage car. So tell me, do you call this car a bug or a beetle? The one that's in this quilt. I'm curious. Tell me the answer. So today what we need is our main fabric, which is cut to 10.5 by 8.5. It's the yellow dots, and as always backed with fusible mesh stabilizer to ward off puckers. That's 10.5 by 8.5 main fabric. And then for the tires, we need the black with white dots, and it is 6.5 by 2.5. And even for my applique pieces, I do fusible stabilizer on the back. And then we need for our car. So remember, this is your quilt. You can do it however you want. And in the directions, it's going to have you use this very pretty orange florally fabric, which is great for this vintage car. But I am going to do mine just a little bit different. And sorry, I couldn't help myself, but I'm making mine pink with white flowers. And do you want to see why? Yes, that is actually my car. Mine is pink with pink flowers on it. And so I have to make mine a little bit custom on my quilt. Do yours however you want to. That pink fabric is not a Kimberbell fabric, and this orange dots, or not dots, floral will be super cute. So do whatever works for you. And then we also need a tiny little vinyl piece for over the windows, and the size of that is going to be 3.5 by 2. Can you even see that? For the windows. And then as always, we need batting, and I have had quite a few questions lately about the batting and what size to cut it. So let me give you a little information. So say our background fabric is 10.5 by 8.5, you could cut your batting the same size as that. That's a really easy solution to not have to worry about what size, but it will be a little big. And actually that's what I used to do, but you're just wasting batting. So what I do now, this is what works for me. If the final cut size is 8.5 by 6.5, then I cut it a 1/2 inch bigger than that. So it would be 9 by 7. So today's batting is 9 by 7. So it's just an easy way to remember a 1/2 inch bigger on both 8.5 by 6.5. So now 9 by 7. All right. In the Kimberbell directions, you can always refer to the Kimberbell quilting instructions, and there's a guide on there of exactly if you're doing this size, it's this size batting, this size, so you can always refer to that, and that's easy to do. If you don't want to look it up every time, you could easily remember it. Actually, the way that they word it is a finished block like this one. A finished block would be 8 by 6, and so they recommend batting that is 9 by 7. So same as how I do it, they just word it a little differently. They word it as the finished block, which means after it's already sewn together, because then the seam allowance is gone. So finished block 8 by 6, then you want batting that's 9 by 7. All right, easy. I hope that makes sense. Keep in mind too, it honestly doesn't matter what size that you cut your batting to, because you're going to cut it, you're going to trim it. So step 1 is the placement stitch for the batting, then you lay it down. Step 2, it tacks it down, and then we trim it. So it really doesn't matter. Obviously you want to try not to waste it, and so that's why I cut it just to a 1/2 inch larger, and that's what is in the Kimberbell directions that I just looked up. So it's all good. It doesn't matter what size, as long as it's at least a 1/2 inch larger. Got it? Does that help make sense about the batting? All right, so the other thing that we need is our threads, and oops, dropping my black. So we need black for the tires, white for the windows, and in the directions, I want to point out, in the directions of this vintage car, it says that they put permanent topping under the windows, and the purpose of that is so that the yellow dotted fabric won't show through. So if you have permanent topper, go for it. If you don't know what permanent topper is, the only way that I know of it is what we used on Love Notes when we for our typewriter. It was underneath the buttons on the typewriter, and that came with our embellishment kit. Actually, I should look and see if there's some in our embellishment kit. My guess is not, but if not, I don't have any, so I'm not going to use it. Our fabric is backed with fusible stabilizer, so that will help to not have the additional colors show through. Do what works for you. So dark gray is for the bumper and the inside of the tires. And then you're supposed to use red for the surfboard. I've decided I'm going to use this pretty teal just because I want to. I think that'll be really cute. And keep in mind that my car is going to be pink, so I thought pink and red might be a little bit too much. And I'm using a Glide Pink from my own collection, not from the Vintage Boardwalk thread kit, because it matches my fabric that I've chosen. So again, do what works for you on that. And then for our quilting today, I'm going to use this pretty variegated thread. It is number 83 by Floriani, and I think that that'll be really cute for the background quilting. So on the quilting, I looked through several different ones. I knew I wanted a floral one right from the start. Before I even started on this Vintage Boardwalk quilt, I knew I wanted a floral design for the quilting behind the car. And Kimberbell has a couple really cute ones. There's an autumn one, I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but they made that for us right in time for us to do the Welcome Autumn as a group project, the bench pillow. So that one's super cool, but it's more autumn, so I didn't want to use that one. And then they have the Swirl 2, which is what I wanted to use. I was going to use that one. That one has daisies and hearts, and I thought that was just perfect for this block. Well, then I pulled it up in embroidery software to see what it was going to look like, and there's only one flower that shows. Everything else is under the car. So there's some hearts and it's super cute, but there's the point I wanted was flowers, and that one just wasn't going to work. So they have a new one, a new quilting design, or at least new to me. I bought it tonight, and it's called Floral 1, and I'm going to use that one. I think that'll be really, really cute. And so we're going to use that in the 6x8 size. And as always, the reason is because our final cut size of this block is 8.5 by 6.5, and that's how we determine the quilting size, because we want 1/4 inch on each side for our seam allowance, and so that brings our quilting design to 8 by 6. So it's actually 6 by 8 because the design is turned in our hoop. So use whatever you want, but I'm going to use Floral 1 6 by 8, and that's by Kimberbell. It'll be a really cute one. One additional note on this, our car does float on this one. We've discussed it before with the bike and the food stand, I think, that we had to move them down to be able to have it look like it's not floating and it's down toward the bottom. This one, we don't do that. So leave it as is, centered in the middle of the hoop. This one does float. We've got a floating car, and mine's going to be a floating pink car. So that'll be fun. And I think that's it. We've got our thread, we've got our batting, we've got our fabrics and our vinyl, and we're going to finish our last vinyl block now. Let's go for it. All right, so just before you go searching, I went through my embellishment kit, and there is not permanent topper on there. So it's obviously just nice to have, not something required. If you look in your Boardwalk book, it says the sample was stitched with permanent topper placed before stitching the windows. So again, just a nice to have. If you have it, use it. If you don't, not a big deal. And especially if you make sure to back your main fabric with fusible stabilizer. All right, let's do it. One quick note, I am going to use my 7x12 hoop. It is a 6.5 by 8.5 design for the quilting. So that means that if you have a 5x7 hoop, then you will have to double hoop for the quilting. But that's easy. You could do a 4x6 twice. Easy peasy, 6x8. that, my dog is playing with a toy, a squeaky toy, while I'm trying to do a video. Do you want to keep seeing tutorials from Cristin Creates? Then all you have to do is click that little red button right there, the subscribe button. It'll make me and Archer very happy. Thanks, everyone.